After a clash of wills that led to Rando abandoning Buddy, Buddy is left to complete her daunting task of ascending to the top of the list entirely on her own. As she sets out to take on the next warlords, she begins to notice the conflict that erupted at the list is now spreading throughout the land, while simultaneously, the number of Joy Mutants is increasing. Even the warlords of the list aren't impervious to these effects, as Buddy finds the cliffs that Dice Mahone calls home was the site of a recent battle. The bodies of his men, Joy Boys, and mysterious men in green littering the ground. Fighting through the remnants of Dice's men, Buddy continues until finding the man himself is no longer a man, but has transformed into a mutant. Buddy quickly disposes of the deformed monstrosity and moves to Cindy Road, the home place of Cindy Gallows, where she finds another Joy Mutant has appeared here, killing those around him. After defeating him, Buddy comes to a cliff top where she finds the remnants of more fighting, yet also finds stakes with the heads of Cindy Gallows' men impaled on them. A gruesome statement from the victors of the battle on the totality of their triumph. Reaching the end of the road, Buddy finds a man hanging from a gallows with several arrows sticking out of him as if he were a pincushion. Men in green, wielding bows, stand below him, admiring their handiwork. Buddy breaks her concentration by asking who the hanged man is, and the men confirm that it's the body of Cindy Gallows. They explain to Buddy that they killed him, along with his men, since they tried to fight against the beasts, and thus win against the will of God. They tell her it's a fate they all deserve, so the beasts can live on, seemingly implying they're embarking on some sort of cleansing of humanity. The cultists start a fight with Buddy, fulfilling a part of their self-appointed mission, yet in a way they didn't expect. Buddy's resiliency is too much for them, and they are killed by her, destroying more of humanity, yet ending their crusade. After the cultist's death, Buddy begins to head back to cross out the second name on the list, but she hears a new voice call after her. She turns, confused, and that's when Cindy Gallows lifts his head. He's still alive, even after the severe beating he just went through, and hanging there on that frame, he intends to defend his spot on the list. Although heavily weakened, Cindy puts up a fierce fight against Buddy, who is taken aback about how strong he still is. However, Buddy's power has grown from her tribulations, and she soon takes the life of the second-ranked warlord in Olathe. Crossing out Dice Mahone and Cindy Gallows from the list, Buddy has only one man left to eliminate, and takes a moment to admire the spoils of her war, to see how far she's come, and reflects on the men she's killed. Although she may not feel it, this violence she's taking part in is taking a toll on her mind. Dark thoughts creep up from the depths of her mind, and begin to manifest themselves as scratched writing on the stone walls of Olathe. And even more concerning, she begins seeing things. Things like Rando in his cape, blocking her path forward, or Brad, doubled over dead, lying on top of a rock. Yet through this all, Buddy feels nothing. Nothing except an intense feeling within her to complete her goal, one she chases with a fervent desire. This feeling, these hallucinations, they sound familiar, similar to the side effects of a particular drug, one encased in a little blue pill, and makes you feel nothing. On her way to Big Lincoln's, Buddy comes across a dreadful scene. Her brother, Dusty, is bound with barbed wire, hanging from a gallows over a deep pit. As she runs up to him, Dusty weakly reaches out to her. He has something he wants to reveal to her, about the men that kidnapped them before. At that moment, the barbed wire snaps, but before Dusty plummets to his death, Buddy catches it, holding him up on her own, his life in her hands. And at that moment, Bolo, the golden opportunist, appears. All of this was a trap laid by him so he could finally get his hands on Buddy. Dusty, not wanting that to happen, implores Buddy to drop him, to sacrifice his life so she can remain untainted. His continued insistence leads to a choice for the player: to drop him, preventing Bolo from touching Buddy, yet killing her brother, or to hang on and suffer whatever Bolo will put her through in an attempt to save him. If Dusty is let go, he falls to the bottom of the pit, and Buddy, in a fit of rage, turns on Bolo, silencing his voice before he can finish his final words and gaining vengeance for Dusty. Buddy can climb down to the bottom of the pit to have one final moment with her brother, but it's too late. He's already gone. If she decides to hold on to Dusty in an attempt to save him, it greatly upsets him, while Bolo approaches with gleeful anticipation. The camera pans away to save the player the sight of what's about to happen. Bolo then notices what sounds like a tune playing from a trumpet, and suddenly a large joy mute jumps over to the duo, landing with a crash. It lets out a moan, then leaves as quickly as it appeared. As the camera pans back over, Bolo's body lies crushed, decapitated, while his head lies lifeless at the foot of the gallows. While Buddy stands unharmed, rescued by the mutant, and still holding up her brother with her raw strength. But the barbed wire is cutting into Buddy's hands, and Dusty knows she can't hold him for much longer, so he decides to take this time to come clean with Buddy. He reveals he was with the men in pink. In fact, the entire thing, the decorations, the kidnapping, all of it was his plan. Buddy is incredulous, shocked that Dusty, her brother, lied to her. And a grim realization hits her. She believed by fleeing Brad, she would finally be free of her prison, that she could live her life free from someone else's control. But those that were helping her, Sticky, Rick, Dusty, they were just intending to lead her to another cage. Dusty explains he only did it because he was trying to protect. Buddy descends to the bottom of the pit, where Dusty lies dying in regret. Buddy's final words to him change depending on if she trusted him earlier in the game. If she put her trust in him, she'll try to understand why he hid the truth from her. But all Dusty can say is that he didn't want to hurt her. He just wanted her to be safe. Hearing that triggers red fury in Buddy. Overcome with emotion, she walks up to her dying brother and kicks him while screaming that she doesn't want to be protected. She doesn't want to be safe. She wants her own life. She's going to rule this land whether he likes it or not. Ending her rant with a final yell of hatred for Brad. Dusty's body now lies still and silent, almost as if it's lifeless. And that's when Buddy realizes her rage has led to her killing her brother. If Buddy chose not to trust Dusty earlier, she tells him as much after his apology. She issues a menacing threat to Dusty. No one is going to stop her, not even her own brother. Understanding her words, Dusty pleads that things can't end this way, apologizing to her once again. But his words fall on deaf ears. Buddy walks up to him and says she'll finish what Brad started. With a cold, unfeeling demeanor, she makes one final promise to Rando and slices his throat, killing him. No matter the outcome of this encounter, Buddy continues on her journey, unfeeling and unconcerned. Yet her mind has felt the effects of this traumatic event. Before crossing into Big Lincoln's territory, she sees her father and her brother sitting in disappointment, looking down on her from above. Crossing the threshold of the doorway, Buddy fights her way through Big Lincoln's guardians, who at first warn her of the infallible Big Lincoln's power, but soon come to admire the strength of the small warrior coming to challenge their master, considering the possibility that she could become #1 in the world. Buddy then traverses the large graveyard that lies before Lincoln's home, the resting place of all those that have attempted to take on the impossible and suffered the highest price for failing. But Buddy knows that she's different and won't suffer the same fate, and eventually comes upon Big Lincoln's tower, entering into the darkness within. She ascends the dimly lit structure until coming to a room covered in blood and bodies, and from the darkness, she is attacked by a large man in a wolf mask. none other than Big Lincoln. The battle between the two rages, falling into darkness, then being dragged into light until one of them emerges the victor. Buddy slays the imposing warlord at the top of his tower, crossing his name from the list and leaving her as the sole ruler of Olathe. However, her accomplishment has wreaked havoc on the land. Innumerable men have been killed in the chaos that has gripped Olathe. As a result of all this fighting, the numerous joy addicts that lived in Olathe have mutated into joy mutants, increasing their number. And instead of these monstrosities being killed, they've been defended by the mysterious men in green. So now the mutants are prevalent throughout the land. It's a scenario that seems ominously familiar to the plan dreamed by the mysterious Dr. Yado. Additionally, Buddy's mental afflictions have only become worse as the dark writing from before has turned even darker, and her hallucinations have only turned haunting. Her uncles, Rick, Sticky, and Cheeks, now stand by the list, while her father and brother look down on her from atop the monolith. The intensity of these effects mean the joy is gaining a stronger grip on her mind, and it can't be too long now until Buddy suffers the same doom as the poor creatures that dot the landscape. Buddy also notices something new. Poles waving polka-dotted flags are now standing from the numerous bodies. She follows the banners, passing more carnage, until coming to the large joy mutant from earlier, and a man in a polka-dotted poncho playing a trumpet, who stops as Buddy approaches. He's surprised to see Buddy hasn't turned, but then compliments her on her devastation of Olathe. The man's tone is haughty, as if he expected everything that's happened here. As if everything Buddy's done was just a rung in the ladder of a plan devised by him, which then clarifies just who this man is. He's none other than Dr. Yado, the madman that created joy and planned to take over the world. A plan that involved harnessing the power of joy mutants, one that necessitated the destruction of everything in Olathe, and a plan that involved him using Nancy, his daughter, to help achieve its end. If Buddy's actions were assisting him the whole time, does that mean... At that moment, Yado tells his sweetheart to make him proud, then strolls off as the beast attacks.